Hey, what's up, everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to Get Hit with the Truth. So today we're doing the September boxing schedule, as we're going to discuss all the fights, the significant fights and cards that are going to take place in the month of September. We'll talk after we're done going through it in order. We'll talk about the 3 best cards of the month, and then we'll talk about the 5 best fights of the month. Now, before we get into that, if you could smash the like button, leave a comment, or subscribe to the channel. I really do appreciate any and all support that I can get as I continue to build my channel here. Now, sadly, I wasn't able to get this video out before Inoue fought Doheny for the undisputed title that in Japan. That took place on Tuesday, September 3rd. I've been super busy. Also, it's very tough for me to try to get home and do these videos now, but from what I heard, you guys prefer that over me driving and everything. So I'm trying is what I'm trying to say. So the September boxing schedule isn't going to include Inoue and Doheny because that fight already happened. It's only going to include the remaining fights of the month. So apologies for that. But let's go in order. Let's start with the 13th, this Friday coming up, September 13th, on DAZN. You have Rocky Hernandez, 130-pound contender, former world title challenger, battling Thomas Matisse. Hernandez, coming into this fight, he narrowly lost last year to O'Shaquie Foster. Now he's trying to get back on that horse. He stopped Daniel Lara earlier this year, and he wants to make quick work and handle Thomas Matisse so he can keep himself in title contention, because he wants to get right back in that mix. Nothing really significant on the undercard to talk about. There really wasn't anything to talk about. Then the next day on the 14th, on Amazon and DAZN pay-per-view, you can catch it on both. You have the Canelo versus Berlanga pay-per-view card. First, the main event, Canelo Alvarez defending his unified 168-pound title when he battles undefeated Puerto Rican contender Edgar Berlanga. Canelo's coming in a heavy favorite into this fight. He gave up his IBF title, taking on the undefeated Berlanga. We're going to see if Berlanga can hang and if he belongs in the top 10 at 168 when he takes on the face of boxing, Canelo Alvarez. In the co-feature, Erislandy Lara puts his 160-pound WBA middleweight championship on the line when he battles former 2-division champion, the very inactive Danny Garcia. Garcia fighting for his first time at 160. He's only fought one time at 154. This is a long-awaited battle between these two guys that they were supposed to fight last year. Garcia hasn't fought in over 2 years. It's actually going to be 2 years and 2 months, and prior to that, he hadn't fought in over a year and a half. So since he lost in 2020 to Errol Spence Jr., he's only fought one time in between then, and that was against Jose Benavidez at 154. So middleweight title on the line in the co-feature on Saturday the 14th on DAZN pay-per-view. DAZN and Amazon pay-per-view. Then also on that card, Caleb Plant, former super middleweight champion of the world, returns to battle undefeated Trevor McCumbee. McCumbie's wildly unknown. Plant wants to return after a year and a half layoff since the loss to David Benavidez. He wants to make a statement and return to his stature when he takes on the undefeated McCumbee, who is talking a big game and wants to make an impression. Kicking off the pay-per-view card is Rolly Romero, former 140-pound champion, returning from his devastating TKO loss to Isaac Cruz back in March, as he takes on a guy named Manuel Jaimes at 140. And then also on Amazon, on free Amazon, you're going to see former unified super bantamweight champ at 122, Stephen Fulton Jr., finally make his featherweight debut when he battles Carlos Castro. This is a good battle right here. Castro has only lost at 126 to Brandon Figueroa, who Fulton beat. And he had a very close fight at 122 against Luis Neri. So Carlos Castro is a real comer. Stephen Fulton, this is his first fight back since the loss to Inoue in July of last year. So he wants to make an impression. He's highly ranked in the WBA at 126, so he wants to make an impression here and make a statement. So that's going to be on free Amazon, topping the preliminary card for the Canelo and Berlanga pay-per-view. On the 20th, Friday the 20th, on ESPN, Jaime Munguia returns from the Canelo loss in May his only loss of his career. He's now with Top Rank, and he's taken on undefeated Canadian super middleweight Eric Bazinian. Big fight for Munguia right here because Bazinian, he's coming off a draw in his last fight, but he is an undefeated fighter, and he's highly ranked in the at 168. And Munguia has a chance to make his debut with Top Rank, a good one, and shake off that loss to Canelo. He's headlining this card. This is going to be a good one. I'm looking forward to this one on ESPN. In the co-feature that night, undefeated 130-pound super featherweight Andres Cortez. This dude is taking on undefeated Filipino fighter Charlie Suarez at 130. Now, if you haven't heard Cortez, he's been doing some damage at 130, kind of under the radar. He's beaten some quality opposition in his last couple fights. He beat Abraham Supernova, who took Oshaki Foster to a split decision just back in February. And he's been making good work and is in the top 10 at 130 right now. And he wants to keep that rolling in the co-feature against Charlie Suarez of the Philippines. So it should be interesting. And then also on the main card, Richard Torres Jr., 10-0 heavyweight, been looking good, is taking on the consummate kind of C-D level heavyweight that you got to go through, Joey Dajwaco. Should be an interesting heavyweight battle right here. Can Torres knock Dajwaco out? Very looking forward to seeing this fight Friday, September 20th on ESPN. Then on the 21st on DAZN, I'm not quite sure if it's DAZN pay-per-view yet because it just says DAZN, but you have the big UK card, the Riyadh Season United Kingdom card coming at you, headlined by the big heavyweight title fight. Daniel Dubois makes the first defense of his title since being upgraded from interim champion when he takes on former two-time unified heavyweight champion of the world, Anthony Joshua. Big-time heavyweight fight right here. Both these guys got something to prove. Both these guys want the winner of Usyk and Fury. So a lot on the line right here. Really looking forward to that. The co-feature, at least I haven't really seen officially what the co-feature is and who's in it, so I'm just going to go in order from the way I read it. You have Liam Smith, former 154-pound champion, returning from the back-to-back fights with Chris Eubank, where he won the first one, lost the second. He takes on Joshua Kelly, who's moving up to 160, trying to make an impression here, taking on the veteran former champ Liam Smith. Should be a good one right there. Hamza Shiraz also on the card, undefeated middleweight contender on the rise, coming off of a big win over Austin Ammo Williams. Prior to that, destroyed Liam Williams. He's taken on the upset-minded Tyler Denny. Shiraz coming in a heavy favorite in this one, but Denny wants to pull off another upset. He recently knocked off, what was the guy's name? I don't know if it was Falchao he defeated or another guy who was a former middleweight contender. So should be interesting to see Shiraz again as he is knocking on the door. He's number one in two different weight classes, in two different governing bodies. We're going to see if he can get his title shot. Then, speaking of titles, you have the 130-pound super featherweight championship on the line for the IBF when newly crowned champion Anthony Kakachi returns to take on former two-time featherweight champion Josh Warrington, who's making his 130-pound debut. Should be a good one right here between these two. Then a vacant interim light heavyweight title fight. Joshua Buatsi, undefeated contender, takes on Willie Hutchinson, who is coming off of his best win when he defeated Craig Richards on the 5 versus 5 card on June 1st. Buatsi wants to really make an impression. So does Hutchinson. We'll talk about that fight in a little bit. That's going to be a really good card from the United Kingdom on September 21st. Then Friday the 27th, you have a women's title fight in the main event on ESPN, but on the undercard, you have Xander Zayas taking on Damian Sosa. Zayas returning from his biggest victory, defeating former champ Patrick Teixeira as he battles 25-2 Damian Sosa in the co-feature. And then Bruce Carrington, undefeated featherweight contender on the rise, is going to battle Sagawa, who's coming off the upset victory over Ruben Villa a few months ago. Can Sagawa pull off another upset, or is Shushu Carrington going to prove that he belongs in the serious mix at 126 pounds, which most of us believe that he does? And then on the 28th on Triller, some app, I'm assuming, Noel Mikhailian, the newly crowned WBC Cruiserweight Champion of the world. He's actually the reigning champ. He's been champ since November of last year. Finally returns to battle Ryan Rozicki, who's the heavy-handed Canadian. Rozicki 20-1, 19 knockouts. Mikhailian, the awkward but very solid-ass cruiserweight and world champion. Should be an interesting battle right here on the 28th between these two fighters. So now we're going to discuss the top 3 cards of the month that you need to watch. Number 3, I'm going with the Friday, September 20th ESPN card headlined by Munguia and Bazinian. That's a good battle of super middleweights right there. Andres Cortez and Charlie Suarez, a battle of undefeated super featherweights on the undercard. And then Richard Torres Jr. and Dajueco in the heavyweight attraction opening up the main card right there. I'm looking forward to that. I think it's going to be good. So that's the number 3 card of the month for me. Number 2 goes to the September 14th Amazon and DAZN pay-per-view card headlined by Canelo and Berlanga. I'm really not happy with this card. I'm really not. If you include the preliminary fight with Fulton and Castro, it makes it better. But it's really a card of guys fighting overly matched fighters. When Danny Garcia is probably the best chance on paper in terms of pulling off the upset against Erislandy Lara, which I'm not even picking him in that fight. Go watch my breakdown video on that one, by the way. That tells you what kind of card it is, but it's still got names on it, and it's still 4 to 5 fights if you include the Fulton Castro preliminary fight. That makes it an interesting card. So I'm looking, it is something to look forward to just because of the name recognition on the card. But the best card of the month, in my opinion, by far, is the Riyadh season, September 21st, DAZN card, headlined by Dubois and Joshua for the heavyweight title, Kakachi Warrington for the 130-pound title on that one. This is an all-UK card. All the promoters came together, and I'm really digging that. Liam Smith, former champ, versus Josh Kelly, who's trying to make an impression. Hamza Shiraz, who I think a lot of people think is going to be a future champion, taking on Tyler Denny. And then the vacant WBO interim light heavyweight title between Buatsi and Hutchinson. There's also a couple other fights on that card. So that's to me the best card of the month. But the top 5 fights of the month now. I didn't do a top 10. I wanted to keep it at 5 for this one. Number 5, I'm going with Buatsi versus Hutchinson on the September 21st card. It's for the WBO interim light heavyweight title. The winner is going to be in line for a title, at 175. And we have Beterbiev and Bivol on October 12th fighting for undisputed. Now, will the winner of this fight be next in line? Probably not. Canelo has already stated he wants to fight Bivol if he beats Beterbiev. But what if Beterbiev wins? The winner of this fight is going to be waiting. Buatsi's coming off a big win over Dan Aziz. He is dying to be the guy, the next guy. And Willie Hutchinson scored a very solid victory on a big card on the June 1st 5 versus 5 card when he defeated Craig Richards, a former world title challenger. So a lot at stake right here in this fight, and I'm looking forward to seeing who comes out on top. Number 4, I gave it to Anthony Kakachi and Josh Warrington for the 130-pound super featherweight title. Kakachi's coming in a solid favorite, but Warrington's got the experience. He's a former 2-time champ at featherweight. His last 2 defeats have been razor thin to Luis Alberto Lopez by majority decision. He got stopped against Lee Wood, but he was winning that fight across the board. So Josh Warrington still has a lot of heart. He still has a lot of passion. He's never moved up to 130, so all his greatness has happened at 126. As you get older, you move up in weight, and maybe this will be significant for him, especially him with being the more experienced fighter in big fights, taking on Kakachi, who a lot of people think got lucky because of an injury that was sustained or a late hit on Kakachi's part against Joe Cordina. So going to be interesting to see how Kakachi looks in his first title defense here. A lot of questions around him, and Josh Warrington, a lot of questions on if he could be significant at 130. And we're going to see in this one, all UK battle for the IBF title at 130. It's going to be good. The number 3 fight of the month, I didn't like doing it because I'm not even excited about this fight, but it has significance because of name recognition. And the winner of the fight's really going to be a player, and that's the Lara versus Garcia WBA middleweight title fight that takes place on the September 14th pay-per-view card. It's the co-feature to Canelo and Berlanga. Lara at 41, if he can dominate Danny Garcia, it's really gonna do well for him. And Danny Garcia, if he can, after all his inactivity, if he can move up to a 4th weight class and become a world champion in a 3rd weight class here, I mean, that would be a monster upset. It would definitely make him a player either at 160 or 154. So it throws him right back into the serious mix against the big dogs, and he needs this win. And Lara, and Garcia, 2 significant names, even if they haven't really done much or been fighting the top tier fighters. They're still significant names that have been banging around and good fighters for the more than the last decade even. These guys have been significant players for maybe 12 years, both of them. I think Lara became significant like way back in like 09 and 10 when he fought and should have beat Paul Williams. And Danny Garcia became a player roughly in the same area right there. So, both these guys have done a lot in the last decade and made a name for themselves. So this is a big fight here for them, whether I like it or not, whether I like the matchup or not. Number 2, I went with Canelo and Berlanga. I'm a big Canelo fan, but I'm really disappointed in this opponent selection. Is it always significant when Canelo fights? Of course. He's the face of boxing. Nobody draws in more pay-per-view buys. Nobody, the casual fan, this is their guy right here is Canelo. But Edgar Berlanga, undefeated, super middleweight on the rise. A few years ago, I would have liked to have thought that this guy could be taken seriously against a guy like Canelo. But to this point, I just don't believe it. He hasn't beaten anybody to even earn the fight. So for me, it's a mismatch, but it's still a significant fight because it's Canelo and it's for 3 of the 4 belts at 168. So it definitely is a big fight and it definitely does matter. But Canelo is a very big favorite. But the fight that I think is the best fight of the month in September is Daniel Dubois and Anthony Joshua for the IBF Heavyweight Championship of the world. Should it be for the Heavyweight Championship? No. Both these guys lost to the lineal heavyweight champion, Alexander Usyk. Both lost significantly. But Dubois has secured 2 big victories since the loss to Usyk, defeating Jarrell Big Baby Miller, stopping him in the 10th round of last year's fight, but then topping that by far with the upset of Filip Hrgović on the June 1st 5 versus 5 card. Nobody saw that coming. He became the IBF interim champion with that win. Usyk gave up the belt voluntarily. He didn't want to deal with all the bullshit from the IBF, so he gave up the IBF title willingly, and that upgraded Dubois. And Dubois and Joshua, who has, since the back-to-back losses to Usyk in 21 and 22, has returned and only looked better in every fight. He got a solid decision victory over Jermaine Franklin. Not a lot of people gave him a lot of credit for that. But then last year, on the first Saudi Arabia card, he went in with a lot of people thinking he was going to get beat by Otto Wallen, and he dominated Otto Wallen to where Wallen quit in his corner after 5, or his corner threw in the towel. Then he returned with, prior to that, he scored a bruising knockout victory over a replacement opponent, Robert Helenius. But he topped it off against Francis Ngannou, who got people thinking that he was something serious after a solid performance against Tyson Fury last year. He absolutely demolished Francis Ngannou in 2 rounds back in March. So Anthony Joshua, there's a lot of questions around whether all this is legit or not, but I've never seen him taking it more serious and looking more smooth and more confident. And Danny Dubois is confident as hell. He's the upset-minded guy. He's the younger fighter. This is going to be a hell of a heavyweight fight for as long as it lasts, and I can't wait to see it Saturday, September 21st on DAZN. So that's it, guys. That's my September boxing schedule. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you're paying attention. A lot of Friday night fights. and every Saturday has something significant on as well. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash the like button, leave a comment, or subscribe to the channel. I appreciate any and all support. This is True Boxing. You've been hit with the truth.